Have you been feeling like you need something to change some health problems that you're having, but you want it to be an easy, healthy way to do it? Then this episode is for you.
You're listening to the Dynamic Women podcast. Each week, you'll be inspired by our global community of women. They'll share with you tools and stories to help you be dynamic in every area of life. He's your host, award-winning coach, and the CEO and founder of Dynamic Women, Diane Ralston.
Hello, lovely dynamic women, and welcome to the Dynamic Women podcast. I am Diane Ralston, your host. And I have the solution that you have maybe been looking for here. If you have a health illness or something that you're dealing with, I have JoAnna Johnston here as my guest. Hi, JoAnna.
Hi, Diane. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. We met at an event and I was hearing about the cool stuff that you were up to, and the one word being snoring. And I snore. And so I was so connected with what you were talking about and thought, this is so cool. I would love to have you on my podcast. So let me tell our listeners a little bit more about you so that they know what they're in for. So JoAnna Johnston has been around elimination diets literally her whole entire life. But it wasn't until her son received an autism spectrum diagnosis at the age of 7 that she realized the power of diet to do more than just avoid specific symptoms. Over the next 10 plus years, she discovered diet solutions for a variety of health issues, getting results with snoring. There it is. Type 2 diabetes, pre-diabetes, even her own chronic medication-resistant depression. And now she has created simple diet solutions to make this knowledge accessible to others through online programs and coaching. So there we go. That's what you do. I love it. So let's dive right in. In your bio, you said that you were around elimination diets like your whole life. So tell us more about that.
Well, my mother was allergic to onions and to chocolate. And so I grew up reading labels. Chocolate is obviously a pretty easy one to avoid. Usually that's a selling point, but It turns out onions is kind of a hidden item. You have to read the labels and you have to know the kind of other names that it goes by. And so I did kind of grow up in that pattern of reading labels and asking questions in restaurants. And so when I went to implement elimination diets for my son, I did kind of already have some of those habits in place from that experience with my mother. Now, she had certain very specific reactions to very specific foods. And like I said, I didn't realize until much later that could actually use diet to treat more complex syndromes such as autism.
Wow. Yeah. And it's funny how we just look at, I have a food allergy and it does this to me, hives or, closes up my throat, makes me not be able to breathe. And there's these very kind of quick onset reactions that we have. I know a friend that she said to me one day, that funny feeling that your tongue gets when you've eaten a banana? I'm like, no, I don't. So these are all the things that happen when people have allergies or people throw up or get bloated. But to think of it being something that's more long-term, like autism can be, or like your depression. I think this is really important that my listeners get to hear about this. Now,
yeah, well, and when it comes to the food allergies and sensitivities, there can actually be delayed reactions as long as 3 days after you have eaten the food. And so even my mother was fortunate to have one of those quick onset reactions so that she was able to use food diary to find it pretty easily. But yeah, some of these other things that are just kind of around all the time, you just have a headache and you don't know why. And it's because of something you ate 3 days ago. It can be really hard to actually sort all that out. And it really does have a cumulative effect. Our bodies are constantly replenishing our cells. And so, there really is something to the old saw about you are what you eat. Where else is that raw material going to come from? And so these things build up over time and actually add up into syndromes like autism or diabetes or any variety of other things, snoring.
Yeah.
even.
So what are some of the common misconceptions about diet? Because and for our listeners, I want you to know this is not about like a restrictive diet and like you can't eat anything or you're trying to lose weight. We're talking about elimination diet and a healthy way of being and eating. So tell us what the misconceptions are.
That's right. Well, you already identified one of them, that this idea that we have in our society where the word has really kind of been co-opted by this weight loss industry to where we associate the word diet to have something to do with the quantity of food. And that's not really what it's about. If you go to a dictionary, almost any dictionary will give you as the first definition, the habitual foods that people eat, right? So either in a culture or for an individual person, it's the stuff you eat habitually. That's your diet. And for whatever reason, right? So some people have religious reasons for following a certain diet. I'm talking about the health reasons for following a certain diet, but that's definitely a big misconception, that it's all about the quantity of food and that the only reason for going on a diet would be to lose weight.
Yeah. So you've been around this with your mom, with your son, but how have you used this information in your own life?
Well, of course, I learned about it from my mother. And she was also very forward thinking for her time. You know, she knew about not feeding kids artificial colors and flavors and stuff like that back in the 80s. And so I used it with my son. And that was a 10-year journey to get him to a place where he does actually live a pretty normal adult life now. The only thing you would really notice is if you try to take him out for dinner, he might only order coffee. Especially if it's a sandwich place, right? But he follows a diet himself now, and I actually got success, as you mentioned in the bio. I had a sort of a subclinical, but really pretty, got in the way of things, kind of depression. For many years, I tried taking medications and just made it worse. So it wasn't until I decided to try a keto diet that I had success. And you can see it wasn't a weight loss thing for me to do the keto, but I wound up having success with the depression, and that turns out to be a inflammatory condition. And so cutting out a lot of those inflammatory foods, sugars and grains, and I actually also do dairy free as well. That's been the success that I've had for myself. And I tell you, without doing that, I definitely couldn't be in a position of starting a business or even really holding a regular job. I didn't for a long time. I'd do a part-time thing here or there, but then I'd just be, I'd have to quit. So it's really been some pretty substantial results for myself.
Yeah,
personally.
and the cool thing is now you help others with it, and you've experienced it in 3 different fashions with someone like older than you, a parent, with a child, and with yourself. So you really have that spectrum of understanding on it as well. And, a lot of times when I'm working with my clients, there are hormonal imbalances or inner chemical imbalances that are happening because they're lacking iron, or they're lacking vitamin B or D, or something else is happening hormonally. And they keep pushing themselves like, why am I not energetic enough? Or why am I sleepy all the time? And I have to do better. And I need to put in some structure. And I'm like, have you had your blood work done recently? And so the other piece of this is, have you looked at what you're eating recently to know if that's helping you or hindering you?
And often it's the latter.
Yes. I've done keto myself, and I know that it was like I was skipping through life. Like things felt, I had so much energy, and I felt, more positive, steady mood, all these benefits. Now, as you said, keto can have a weight loss effect, and sometimes you don't need to go that extreme as well. And I'm sure that's what you help your clients with.
It's very individualized. Yeah, definitely. And the things that different people eliminate, like I said, I done keto, but then eliminate dairy on top of that, which is it's pretty, a lot of people would think was really restrictive, but that's just because they're used to thinking of relying on dairy to get their fat in keto. And really you just get a little creative, and there's plenty of other options. And that's one of the other misconceptions about diet, is that it's about what you can't do. And I really don't like that language. I think it's disempowering. I think you encourage people to think of themselves as a victim. This is really a choice that we're making for our own health. And
Yes.
so we do it because we choose to. And so rather than looking at what I can't eat, I look at what I don't eat.
Yeah. Or what you do eat all the time. Right. And not
And
even think about eliminating.
right. So there's actually relatively, it's a long list, but it's a short list of things I don't eat because there's still all the other foods. Right.
Yeah.
And if you really focus on, okay, what am I going to eat and how can I make that delicious? It's really a much more empowering kind of approach.
Yeah. Now let's go back to your son. So how was it being a mom of a son that was on the autism spectrum, and like before you figured out what he shouldn't be eating anymore? What was life like that then?
Well, definitely before the diagnosis, I was kind of pretty confused. And so the diagnosis itself actually provided a kind of an integrating way to look at it, right? It was a name for what was going on as opposed to just something's kind of off, right? And so there was the internet, and so I could begin searching. And among the first things I found is that one of the most effective treatments is actually a gluten-free, casein-free diet. And casein is a milk protein. The casein-free diet is a little bit more restrictive than just a dairy-free diet like you would do if you were lactose intolerant.
Yeah.
You have to work a little harder to actually avoid the casein protein. And it turns out the medical reason for that is that folks on the autism spectrum very often have a deficiency of the enzyme that digests those proteins.
Oh, okay.
And so that's why it works so well to eliminate them, because then there's all this stuff that's just not getting digested and actually causes symptoms. And so I learned about that and just kind of built from there. At one point we had an allergy test done and he came back allergic to 66 things. So that would have been the time to really get hung up on the can't side of things, right?
Yes.
But instead, I looked at, okay, what's left? And we discovered some new foods and we got creative and he didn't starve.
Yeah. And just some of our listeners, if I can talk to you for a moment, I'm sure there are people out there who are having trouble with an overactive child or a child that's not responding in a way that you would feel would be quote unquote normal. And so this is one thing. And I went through this with a friend of mine who her son was behaving differently than all the other kids when we were all hanging out. And one of the things I really encourage you to do is look at the food and see if that is a way, and get the support, like you were saying, JoAnna, with a doctor to be able to give you that diagnosis. So when you got the diagnosis, you removed the things that, as you said, he doesn't eat these things anymore. And he goes into the things he can. So how did his life change from before and after you were able to really get this elimination diet set for him?
Oh, it's completely night and day, Diane. Before we got any diagnosis or did any treatments, I was told by his kindergarten teacher that he spent the entire recess circling the playground. He just ran and he had his hands up in front of him like this, making car noises. And he wasn't driving a car, he was being a car.
Huh.
And of course, as a car, he couldn't interact with any of the other children or, develop any sort of normal relationships. He didn't have any friends to speak of. I mean, there were kids that were nice to him, as opposed to all the rest of them, but that's not really exactly the same. He wasn't able to have those kinds of normal interactions. And now after doing the diet for years, it actually turns out he's kind of an extrovert and loves to go out and has friends all over the place. And it's really a big change. In particular, that's considered one of the symptoms of that particular level of the autism spectrum is impaired social relationships. And he every once in a while I'll give him advice as somebody who's been around the sun a few more times, but he really doesn't have issues with social relationships anymore. Yeah. And so I don't even think he could actually be, qualify for that diagnosis anymore, that being the primary feature of it.
Yeah. And even like my son, he's 6 and he doesn't have any formal diagnosis of ADHD or ADD or autism or anything, but you feed him the wrong foods and he is crazy. And I'm sure every mom out there, what I'm saying. You give the kid sugar and the kid's flying around like crazy and then crashes and or gets emotional or whatever it may be. So
if you're paying attention, you'll notice these things.
Yeah, it's important that we talk about this, but you don't always think about it with things like a sandwich, right? So let's go to over the next 10 years, after you got the diagnosis and you were doing the elimination diet testing and everything, you discovered that these diet solutions are for a whole variety of different health issues. So what are they and how did you do it?
Well, along the way, Diane, as we worked with eliminating different foods for my son's symptoms, of course, we eliminated them from the rest of the family's diet as well. And so in particular, along the way, I noticed some other changes in other family members, things like snoring and changes in blood sugar and stuff like that. So that those are some of the topics that I'm focusing on here, moving into bringing this work to the public.
Yeah, making it more accessible, really. So what is it that you're working on these days?
Well, Diane, I'm about to launch my flagship program. It's going to be called the Snoring Diet Solution. And that was the one that you first had heard about and had interest in.
Yes.
And so it's going to be an online course. And it's going to go through this whole process of how to implement an elimination diet. And then in the future, I'm going to have additional programs for type 2 diabetes and other things as well. So there's also coaching available, either in groups or privately, that will be part of that program as well.
Yeah, nice. And I'm sure there's a lot of our female listeners out there that are like, my husband needs that course. But I also encourage you ladies, don't be ashamed to say that you snore too, because I do. But that probably will save a lot of marriages, because there's a lot of women who do not sleep in the same room as their spouse because they snore or their spouse snores. So, or
both.
They snore and their partner snores, right? And so just something to be thinking about to all of our listeners, that you could potentially get back into the same bed as your partner if you deal with this. So
and that's potentially a motivating factor for them. If you're thinking of pitching this to your husband, if you make that request to him, as his wife, he's likely to be more open to giving it a shot.
Yeah, exactly. Now, we will put in the show notes the link so that people can go and check out the snoring solutions that you're giving the program. But also you have a gift, don't you?
That's right. If you go to the link in the notes that Diane just mentioned, you will have the opportunity to download my free guide to the 19 hidden names for soy, because it isn't always listed under its own name. And so there's at least 19 other things that it can sometimes hide in. It isn't always in all those things, but if you're looking to do an elimination, you're actually better off to eliminate all these other things as well and make sure you get everything. Yeah. And also I would like to mention, if anybody would like a private consultation, there's going to be a link to that in the notes as well.
Awesome. Yeah. And
you'll just need to mention that you heard about us on the Dynamic Women podcast.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. And with the soy elimination, so that's one thing that people can eliminate. And like you said, when you were younger and you were looking at labels for your mom, it is important to read the labels. And so this will give you that opportunity to really focus on eliminating one food, being soy. And if you're like, I don't really eat soy, you're like, well, the main thing is like you eat edamame and you go to the Japanese restaurant, that's soy. And then all the other hidden things. And this is so crazy, because when I was looking at eliminating gluten, I was shocked at how much gluten was in everything. So it's like, okay, I'm going to get some chicken broth. There's gluten in it. Like, it's ridiculous. And so soy can be one that also is important for women to get rid of because of the hormonal effects that it has on us to throw things off. And again, I'm not a doctor and by any means, but it's important that everyone grabs it. So go pick that up.
You're right that the soy is the key to the snoring diet solution, and I'm going to say that over. You're right that the hormone issue is important to the soy as an elimination item, and that's actually the key to the mechanism by which it's the core of the snoring diet solution, is to help correct some of those hormonal imbalances. And you can find out more about that by subscribing to my list, and you'll hear more about that there.
Awesome. So you've lived it, you've supported others through this, and it seems like this is a real passion of yours, and that you're kind of on this movement, letting people know about this possibility that can really help them. And as we said in our title, transform their lives. So what's the final message, as we wrap up here, that you'd like to share with everyone?
Well, Diane, what I'd really like everybody to take away from this is that diet is a potential solution to almost any problem or symptom that you may be experiencing. And that's not something that you'll necessarily hear from your doctor, but with a little research or a little experience or a little support from someone like yours truly, you can use diet to eliminate your symptoms, your chronic conditions, and really the effect that has on your life is nothing less than transformational.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, JoAnna, for sharing about your personal experiences and sharing your expertise here today. And for all of our listeners out there, make sure you hit subscribe and write a review. We actually have the Dynamic Women Podcast Review Contest that's on right now, and you will be entered to win $1,000 package that can really help you to move forward by getting clarity in different areas of your life and some other cool programs that I'm offering in that package. So make sure that you check out the show notes so that you can really take advantage of entering that contest. So make sure that you also share with someone else. Maybe you have someone in your life that really needs to change up their diet because of their mood, or because maybe they have early onset diabetes or something that you think that this can really help them. So please share it on and tune in every other week. We always have a wonderful dynamic woman like JoAnna sharing their expertise. And so I encourage you to listen in every other week for those episodes, and then I'll be on your solo episodes in the alternating weeks. So until next time, everyone, stay dynamic. Bye.
Thank you, Dynamic Women, for joining us today. Please hop on over to iTunes to subscribe and leave us a review. Who do you know who needs to hear our message? We'd love it if you'd share our channel with your friends and family. If you're ready to be more dynamic, have more balance and more success, head over to www.dynamicwomenclub.com/free gift for your Key to Success book. Stay dynamic.